Welcome to Backroom Talk.
We're going to be talking about all things strength today. So let's go into principle number 1. And this is so OPEX, but it's know your why.
Building strength and building size or hypertrophy are such different things. Pay attention to what you're doing in the gym. More isn't always better. It's so hard, right?
To listen to more Backroom Talk, be sure to subscribe. Learn to design personalized programs with the OPEX system of coaching by heading to opexfit.com.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Backroom Talk. I am Georgia here with Carl. We're going to be talking about all things strength today. And the reason we chose this topic was that we just released a new free guide, the Strength Coaches Manual, that is available for you to download. If you have not downloaded that already, we'll make sure we throw a link to it in the description. Go ahead, grab that one. We have some really cool stuff around like strength life cycle and what it means, not just to like get strong for 8 weeks, but you know, the progression of strength through someone's life from a novice through to the grandmaster training stage. We talk about the squat, we go into depth there, and then we have some cool stuff around accessory program design as well. So go get that guide, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good. I downloaded it, I read it, and I learned a ton.
Yeah, what did you learn that was new, Carl?
Oh, man. I didn't learn anything new from that just because we created that internally.
Yes.
To be fair. But I think the most interesting thing is intentions around accessory work.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't think a lot of people think about that in strength. They think about that a lot in hypertrophy, and there's obvious intentions in why you do accessory work and why you target this muscle versus that one, but not so much in strength. So that's something I think people could take a lot from.
Yeah, so guys, if you want to know what those intentions are and how to program accessory work with purpose, make sure you download that guide.
All right, barely got through that one. All right, let's go.
We did it. Last thing I want to call out before we dive into our 4 principles of building strength is just CCP. We're about to close enrollment for our last cohort for 2021. It's literally like, I think it's the last day that someone could potentially apply, the day this goes live.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it, guys, like today is the best day to go to apply for CCP. If for any reason you miss out on that deadline, it is okay. We will have a pre-sale coming up so we can give you some details on that and get you involved. But if you want to learn from Carl and from James down the hall, I know you guys don't know that he's down the hall, but he's a couple doors down from the studio where we're filming
this. Yeah, you know James, right down there.
Yeah. Then now's your chance. Go ahead and get in there.
Sign up, do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, strength building. Before we get into the conversation, Carl, what does strength mean for you?
Oh, for me, yeah, strength means a lot of different things to me. I've thought about this a lot, actually, not just this week, but you know, over different courses of my life when I thought I had to get stronger for specific things, and when I just wanted to be stronger as well. So, strength to me means that we're able to overcome challenges. That's it, right? And I know we can get really specific in terms of, I want to overcome this challenge of the back squat and the load that's on the bar when I do this back squat, or overcome this challenge of, swimming this 400 meters and not drowning and dying in the water, right? I think strength is simple. It's just overcoming challenges. That's it.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to ground it in that. And I know we're going to go into a few personal anecdotes at the end and kind of walk through the principles that we lay out in this conversation applied on a personal note. But yeah, I just wanted to start there. And
what about you?
It's about being capable.
Yeah.
It's just about it's about being able to do the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's very similar with what you just said there.
And we didn't rehearse that. Yeah.
No, just
that surprised me. I didn't know we were starting with that.
I honestly didn't know we were either. It wasn't bulleted down or anything like that. I just thought about it.
Cool. I like that. That's a good one.
Yeah. So I guess let's go into principle number 1. And this is so OPEX, but it's know your why, which I think anyone that's been around our community for a little bit understands why we're starting with this one, right?
Yeah.
It's never just about the 5x5. It's never just about like getting as strong as possible. There's got to be some kind of a why behind why you're doing this strength program or why you're pursuing strength. So what does know your why mean to you?
It's being specific. Let's just call it that. I was going to say a word that people would probably connect to strength conditioning, but I'm going to stay away from that. It's being specific. And that doesn't mean that you have to be, participating in a sport or competing in a sport, and it has to be sport specific. It's not that. It's just your why has to be extremely specific, even if your specific isn't what people are used to hearing. For example, have you ever had a conversation with someone and they're like, I just want to get stronger? Like, have you ever had that conversation?
Definitely.
Yeah, right. So if you dig, which I'm sure you have, when you ask them, okay, what does getting stronger actually mean to you? Is that like in the back squat, in the bench press, the leg curl? Like, what is that? Like, what does getting stronger mean? And most people don't think that far, right? So they don't get specific enough. And if the person doesn't get specific enough, they don't know their why or why they're doing that strength training, right? And if we don't know our why and the specifics behind our why, we're just kind of floating out there. We're floating in the world, and there's no rights and there's no wrongs, because I think typically you'll hear like, what are the best exercises to get strong? And it's like the back squat. And it's like, yeah, the back squat is the best exercise to get strong if you want to get stronger in the back squat, right? If you ask someone, hey, I want to get just generally strong, and I want to feel stronger, it's like you might be peppering in a lot of different exercise selection pieces. You might be doing some hack squats. You might be doing some Smith machine cyclist squats or back squats. Like, yeah, I know that's like, oh, that's not strength, right? Like there's some assistance happening there, but it's like you weren't specific enough and you didn't say the back squat. So knowing your why just lays out the framework of what needs to be done to get there. And I don't think most people outside of competitors that are like, I need to get stronger in this, this, and this, I don't think most people that want to get strong actually thought enough about why they want to get strong, and they're just not specific enough when they say that. So, just got to know your why.
Definitely. I think as well, in the past, there was a lot of messaging around cardio and aerobic work being like the thing to do for weight loss. And that's changed a bit, right? I think people are more aware of the body composition benefits of doing resistance training. And you hear a lot about like the afterburn and like lifting weights in the gym. You might not burn as many calories in this period of time, but throughout the day, you're going to be increasing your metabolic rate and all the good things that happen with having more muscle mass. But I think there's a little bit of a disconnect happening there too. Mm-hmm. And messaging around like why we do certain types of training is so often connected to something like that, like to burn calories for the average person who wants to lose a little bit of weight and look a little bit better. So I do think in the know your why, it's a good opportunity to actually sit down with your client and talk about some of the health benefits of strength training, because they might not be someone who wants to improve their back squat, or they've got an Olympic weightlifting meet and they're like actually concerned with a strength number. They might just think strength training is connected to, again, their goal of improved body composition. Mm-hmm. But it's like, what are the other things that happen with strength training that are actually really beneficial for what your goals may be around health and longevity?
Yeah, and it's interesting even saying strength training, right? It's like, because when I hear that, I immediately think, okay, the intention is to get stronger, right? And I think that's why I know that's why we say resistance training, right? You're just training in resistance. Because when we say strength training, like we're just like bucketing on, and it's like you have to get stronger all the time. Like being where you're at, like let's say you've been doing this thing for 14 years, right? It's like, are you doing strength training anymore? Question to you.
Yeah.
Are you doing strength training?
Honestly, no. There's little areas that I'll see like improvements in strength because I've never like dug down a specific rabbit hole. Like I bench press a lot more than I did 5 years ago. But my squat and my deadlift aren't getting stronger than they were 3 or 4 years ago when I did a lot of training and kind of pushed myself to potential in those areas relative to like the amount of training and amount of work I'm like actually willing to do, you know?
I'm definitely not doing strength training anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff around like intentions and stuff like that. And I know we'll talk about this more specifically when we get to the back end of the conversation, but I'm not doing strength training specifically anymore because I really can't, right? Yeah. Like naturally, I really can't. Getting a little bit older, right? Like I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And I'm not going to say I reach my maximum physical potential, but I'm past the stage of reaching my maximum physical potential because of experience and everything like that. So everything that I do now, if I do want to like kind of dive a little bit into strength training, has to be so well thought out. Everything has to be so aligned and like perfect for me to see like a 2% increase in almost anything, right? But like you said, like I can find some wacky movement that I haven't done and get stronger in that movement. But am I getting stronger? No, I'm just like learning how to do that movement. And because I'm learning how to do it, I can load it more, right? So yeah, strength training versus resistance training is like that just stuck out to me because I'm like, wow, what's the intention behind that if you're doing strength training?
Yeah.
Just to get stronger.
It's really interesting language, and I think it's a good reason to challenge the notion of using the word strength all the time, and like for coaches to actually change their vernacular a little bit and use that word resistance. I also, what you're saying right there connects so nicely to the strength life cycle that we lay out in that guide. So just gonna give it one more little call there, guys, because we do lay out what that progression from novice to intermediate to advanced to master to grandmaster looks like. I'm not calling you a grandmaster quite yet, Carl.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not there. Not there yet. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we go into the human, right? When we're talking about like experience and stuff like that. So we could dig a little bit deeper in those different stages.
Yeah, I guess like one thing more on intentions, because there are, again, some amazing health benefits of building strength, but there's a point of diminishing returns and a point where performance starts to become unhealthy, and pushing to elite levels of strength. Like you look at, world level power lifters, like those guys aren't chasing health anymore.
No.
So I do think it's important to lay out that there is a difference between getting strong for life versus getting strong for sport.
Yeah. That's a tough one though. If someone asks us, what does that mean, right? Like, how do I know I'm strong enough? And I think the way that both of us would probably answer that is we would go back to what does strength mean? Like our answers of like, what does strength actually mean to you? It's being able to overcome the physical challenges that you actually face on a day-to-day basis. Are you able to do that? And if someone's like, yes, of course, I don't even think about anything as I move throughout my day. It's like, you're probably on that path of being strong enough, or you might just be strong enough, but there's some really good benefits for resistance training. Keep doing that because you don't want to lose it, right? So, I think the answer to that question would be, do you face challenges that you can't overcome because you're not strong enough?
Yeah. The Active Life guys put out a graphic with some text on it that kind of resonated.
A graphic with some text on it?
One of those, an Instagram graphic. And it was, I'm going to butcher it, but it was something along the lines of like your joints don't care how much you lifted in your 20s when you're 80 or something like that, which I think is a message that resonates with us. But it is also a little bit challenging to lay out like what exactly is that number? Like what is too heavy for someone to lift? What is the point where pursuing strength actually is going to be detrimental later in life? And we talk about, the ability to express and recover from something. Are you able to actually recover from the training you're doing as a good indicator as to whether you are pushing too hard or not?
People know.
But
yeah, people know. Yeah, people know if they're pushing too hard or not. Top level anything, right? Top level anything, whether we're talking about a bodybuilder, and I know that's not specifically strength, but they're trying to reach that potential in aesthetics. A world-class power lifter, they know if they're pushing the envelope, right? It's all in recovery, right? Do you go through a 6-week cycle and you feel great week 7, 8, and 9? They're like, oh, fuck no, right? Like, no, like I pushed that thing, right? It's like, my capabilities are here and I'm just like constantly pushing a little bit over that, a little bit over that, a little bit over that. And it's like, I'm sore every day. Like I have this knee thing. I have to wrap them up really tight, but I put a lot of weight on the bar and I get after it. People know, right? You see people going in the gym and like everyday people, right? It's like knee sleeves and wrist wraps and, I got to roll on the foam roller for 35 minutes just to, get through my little things like that. Like people know if they're pushing the envelope or not.
yeah, I think sometimes it's just a willing ignorance that comes along with that. And,
you're pushing the envelope right now a little bit, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We talked about that, and you're like, hey, I know this shit, but I'm gonna, take a little bit of a break at the end of the year, or go into the next year, and we'll
see how we
reassess and see where you're at.
We'll get into that later. Let's move on from Know Your Why, because I feel like we could go back and forth on that one for a while.
Yeah, probably.
Let's get into adaptation. So what actually happens on a physiological level when someone is building strength? Because I think understanding that is important to then go on and know like the different ways that someone could build strength.
Yeah, I think you mentioned something a few minutes ago around muscle mass or body composition. You said something that kind of made me think about this, but building strength, let's say at its highest levels, and we'll talk about this when we get into life cycle, but building strength and building size or hypertrophy are such different things. They're such different things. When we're building strength, we have to be dialed. We have to be very, very dialed in. We can't beat ourselves up. Recovery is so important. And what's happening is that on a neurological level, we're adapting to this load that's just getting heavier. Our bodies are exposed to this load and we have to overcome it, right? And it's as simple as that, right? It's like the only way you're going to get strong in something is if you lift more weight in that thing, right? Specific to exercise. You're not going to meet a lot of people that are not like just, rolled out of bed beginners that are going to get a stronger back squat by doing leg curls or leg extensions. That shit isn't real, right? You're not going to meet someone that's going to get really strong doing rear foot elevated split squats. That's not how it works, right? So the only way to get stronger is to have something to adapt to. And the thing that you have to adapt to is more load over time. It is that simple. Getting strong is very, very simple. Hypertrophy, we won't go into that. Maybe we talk about hypertrophy on another podcast. Okay. But hypertrophy is the opposite, right? Whereas, if your goal is to get strong, you have to be extremely fresh on that day or two that you're squatting really, really heavy throughout the week. In hypertrophy, we're just tearing muscle tissue, right? Like I did quads yesterday and I did quads again today, right? Did my quads feel awesome today? No, right? But it doesn't fucking matter, right? I didn't have 400 pounds on the bar hitting, heavy 3s or 5s, right? I had like dumbbells in the front rack and just like going at a fast tempo and putting blood inside of my quads, right? Hypertrophy and strength are so different. And where people get in trouble, intermediates to advanced, where they get in trouble is when they try to blend that stuff. Yeah. Where they're like, I want to get bigger and stronger, so I'm going to do this. And there's some stuff in undulation and all of that. I get it. But if you want to get bigger and stronger and you're not a beginner, even a little bit intermediate, you have to be so focused on what you want to adapt to. Yeah. You can't really effectively blend those things if your training age is really high. So in terms of adaptation, it's very simple. You have to adapt to moving a heavier load over an amount of time.
Explain why freshness is important to being able to do that, especially at an advanced training age. Like, why do you have to be mentally fresh?
Yeah, it's our nervous system. I always use this term stale. I think I've used it with you a couple times, but that's how I explain it. Like if I ever come into the gym and I'm like stale or I feel like I'm not quite recovered, my reaction time is a little off, I'm a little bit groggy, or I have a little bit of head fog, and I'm walking to the gym and I see in my Coach RX, it says like, anything over like 88, 92% in a back squat, I can't do a rep because I'm not fresh enough. My nervous system cannot fire to a point where it can muster enough to keep positions and also build enough power to come out of the bottom of a back squat, right? So it's our nervous system. We have to have that neural drive, right? And we have to preserve that. And that's why periodization is really important. That's why how we set our week up is really important if you're trying to get strong. But on the other hand, if you just want to get big, you can do a lot of sets and a lot of reps and still get big and be under recovered. And you have to start to pay attention to like your tendons, ligaments, and joints. And, you see people doing bicep curls every day. And they're like, I have something wrong with my elbow. It's like, yeah, dude, you need to take a little bit of a break from doing bicep curls 16 times a week. So, yeah, it's just the nervous system is so important. That thing has to be like firing every time you come into the gym when you get to those higher loads, because you can do 5 at that or you can do 0 based on your nervous system.
Yeah, I mean, creating a max contraction is different to, for example, driving your car. But I think a good example in trying to explain the importance of recovery to a client who may be wanting to get strong but potentially under recovering and just not prioritizing sleep and all the things we know they need to, is that example of, how much the incidence of driving incidents go up when people are like fatigued and not sleeping. Yeah. We're not able to respond to the situation that we need to as effectively if we're tired. And that's so obvious for anyone that's like tried to drive after a bad night's sleep. Yeah. It's the same thing that happens in the gym. Your brain just can't tell your muscles what it needs to do in efficient enough manner to be able to overcome that external load.
Yeah, everything just has to be firing appropriately. You can't fake strength. You can fake muscle size, right? In terms of like how you exercise. I hope that made sense to people, but you can just do it. You can will your way to getting bigger. You can't will your way to getting stronger. You have to be really smart about it. If you've been doing this for any amount of time. And I go back to how we started this with like, I don't do a bunch of strength training because everything would have to be very dialed. My volume would have to be very low for me to get stronger.
Yeah. Well, you often hear people say like a larger muscle tends to be a stronger muscle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a point where that's no longer really the case, like with an advanced trainee?
Yeah, absolutely. Even with a novice trainee, because there's not, it's correlation, right? It's like the muscle's getting bigger and the person's getting stronger as a beginner trainee, right? Like those things are going to happen in unison. When you start to get to an advanced training age, your muscles just don't get bigger, right? If you're drug free, you don't just like go in, I'm going to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's like your muscles aren't just going to like start growing out of nowhere unintentionally. Strength isn't going to happen unintentionally. So it is true with novice to intermediates, like they will grow and get stronger at the same time, but it's correlation, right? They're not getting stronger just because that muscle is getting larger, right? When the muscle gets larger, what's usually happening in training? Muscle endurance is being built, right? Aerobic capacity is being built, right? So when they go to that strength training phase, they recover better when they're doing their 5x5s, right? They can push that fourth and fifth rep out because they have better muscle endurance. So yeah, a larger muscle can be correlated to a stronger muscle, but it doesn't just happen because the muscle is large.
For sure. Advanced trainee, is it appropriate for them to do blocks throughout the year where they're working on more hypertrophy characteristics if the goal is to get as strong as possible, or no?
If the goal is to get as strong as possible, absolutely, but it's not because they're trying to get bigger. Yeah. It's because they need to preserve their nervous system and they still want to be in the gym.
Yeah.
Right? So, you lay out a year for an advanced trainee that's like, I want to get strong as hell, right? It's like, when do we want to get strong as hell? You have to ask that question, right? And it's like, cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3. Maybe we're doing some accumulation and we're accumulating some volume to condition our muscles to get strong, right? And then cycle 4, cycle 5, cycle 6, we're pushing intensity. So by the time we get to cycle 6 inside of that year, they're strong as hell, right? And then it's like, can they do 7, 8, 9 in intensification? Probably not if they just got as strong as humanly possible. So it's almost like those accumulation phases are breaks for those people that are trying to get as strong as possible. You can't do one thing forever. You can't get big forever, right? Like linearly. Like, all right, week 1 and week 52, I'm on this 52-week program where I'm just getting big as hell week over week over week without going from one type of cycle to another, and you can't get as strong as possible over 52 weeks either.
Gosh, but then you start to think about layering year on year on year. There's going to be times where in week 52 we hit potential, and then we're in, week 70, and we're not as strong as we might have been in week 52 because of what we're doing in that phase. And
that goes into like techniques. What are you doing to like eke those percentages out? Minimum effective dose, not only in like volume and intensity, but minimum effective dose in what you're doing and what strength building strategies you're putting into play. We say this in a lot of different ways, and I think the cluster sets is a really, like, the clusters aren't like this, like a higher order, but don't use them if you don't have to use them, right? Imagine that client that just went through like clusters and back offs and all of that stuff over a year, and that was their first year of training, right? And they just adapted so well to that. So it was like month 1 to month 12 of ever even stepping into a gym, they just did all of these advanced techniques. It's probably going to be tougher for that person to like take a step back and be like, okay, I'm just going to do some 10s and then some 8s and then some 6s and then like see that linear growth because their body's like, no, bro, like I want more, right? Because all those like advanced strategies, quote unquote, I'm doing for audio, all those advanced strategies, they're just another way to layer volume and intensity.
Yeah. That's
it. That's all they are. So now we have to start looking at what that life cycle is and what we should be doing as we go through that life cycle. Right. And it's so coaches want to do it, right? It's like, I want to use the advanced shit with the person I just onboarded and never lifted a weight before because I want them to think I'm smart. And it's like if you're going to work with that client for 5 years, obviously you're setting them up for failure, but you're setting yourself up for failure because you're going to see some awesome results and then you're going to stop. Then you're going to be like, oh shit, what do I do now? Right? Like in nutrition, it's kind of the same idea. Oh, we're going to go to this massive deficit, right? It's like, well, what are you going to do next year?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to like reverse them. And it's like, oh shit, man, but it's going to take a while to reverse, 52 weeks of being in a 25% deficit. So it's the same idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same idea.
There's only so much volume and intensity one can accrue over a 12-month period, and you can't carry that on forever.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Should we talk about recovery a little more? Anything else to add there?
No, nothing in adaptation. Yeah, let's hit recovery.
Okay. What should someone do to recover?
Fucking recover. Yeah, everything we just talked about, right? Yeah, so pay attention to what you're doing in the gym. Mm-hmm. More isn't always better. It's so hard, right? It's so hard. Yeah, I know.
Oh, it kills me.
Yeah, especially for us that just love to be in the gym all the time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Well, but 5 days a week, 6 days a week for an hour, right? That's like all the time for a lot of people. But yeah, it's tough because you want to be in there because you love it and you really enjoy it. But you have to understand that, you got to rest. You got to rest with the work. And it gets interesting when you look at a person by person, look at it from a individualized standpoint. We'll talk about the human next, but recovery is so different for each person. We have to understand what people recover from and what people don't recover from. And I know we beat that to death, right? But you and I recover from different work differently. Me and Jacob recover from different work differently, right? Like everyone recovers very differently. So principles are really good, right? Like they're those, what did Sam call it? The bumpers.
The bumpers.
The
good old bumpers when you go to the bowling alley and they make sure your ball doesn't go in the lane.
In the gutter.
In the gutter.
You want to stay in the lane.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So.
But that's why I'm so bad at bowling.
George is like, it's not supposed to go in there? Why won't you let me in there? No, but yeah, principles are good for that, right? But there's a lot of, principles. It doesn't just go, I'm going to guess, sorry for bowlers. It doesn't go just 6 feet, right? Like principles are like thousands of feet. There's a lot of variation that can occur inside of that lane, right? So, inside of that lane is the human, right? Like that's the individual, that's the person. So you have to figure out inside of those principles, right? Like don't go outside of those. Those are like the truth. Inside of those principles, how do you find that human's lane? Yeah. And that's like that's the beautiful thing about what we do, right? And what we teach coaches to do is find that person's lane and lean into it.
Definitely. And even within that one person, they're going to respond differently to different things that you give them. Mm-hmm. Like it's not just like Carl responds this way to resistance training.
Yeah.
Because depending on what's in that resistance training session, depending on the patterns inside of it, depending on the piece of equipment that you chose to give him, he's going to respond differently to that. So there's no one, this is how long it takes Carl to recover.
Definitely. Yeah. But no, recovery, sorry, I know I hit a lot of recovery, or we hit a lot of recovery and adaptation. But yeah, I mean, taking a step back, so we haven't talked about this yet, and this is the number one thing we need to look at in recovery is lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. We have to ensure that we're not just building this beautiful, yearly plan and all of that we actually pay attention to the things that we do outside of the gym and understand what we respond well to and what we don't respond well to. How much sleep do I need versus you? How many calories do I need versus you, right? Like you don't want to be in a massive caloric deficit and trying to get stronger. That just makes no sense, right? What did we just talk about? Like you need to feel fresh. Like everything needs to be like this. You need to be like, you have to have this level of excitement every time you walk into the gym to do those heavy days for whatever you're trying to get stronger at. Yeah, so all of the BLGs, right? Those BLGs need to be in place.
On the, other side, what are signs that someone is not recovering adequately? And like, what are some of the things you'd look for? First one that comes to mind is they're not getting stronger. Like there may be something wrong in the design, but they may also just not be recovering appropriately from the work you're giving them.
Yeah, I would look at how they're feeling in those sessions, because the design I think it's easy to look at the design first, but I don't think we should, because we could change the design a million times. But if we never ask our clients or ourselves, how do I actually feel going from Sunday to Monday, from going from Thursday to Friday, whenever you're doing those heavy days, if we're never like assessing that stuff, we could change the design a million times and that just might not get better, right? So we just have to ask ourselves or ask our clients, you know, how many reps could you have done of that thing, right? Week 1, like say you're doing, 4 reps at 90%. It's like you're at 90%, you did 4 reps, based on some enemy stuff that we did, you should probably be able to do, like the coach knows this, you should probably be able to do like 5 to 7 reps at 90%, right? Like the coach, that's in their brain. And it's like, how many reps could you have done after those 4? Week 1, the client's like, oh, probably 3 or 4 more. Felt pretty good. Week 2, how many reps could you have done after that 92%? Maybe 3 or 4, right? In your head as a coach, you're like progressing beautifully, right? This is linear periodization actually happening. Week 3, they come in and they get 2 reps, right? Let's say you kept the percentage the exact same, 92%, and they got 2 reps. It's not the program. That's not the program. That's the person, right?
Yeah.
So now that's like right? Something's off here. Let's have a conversation and see what happened yesterday. Did you train at 7 p.m. where usually you train at 7 a.m., right? Like start to identify those individual differences of recovery or just something was off. But I think it's easy to look at the program design, but you have to look at the person first because most programs are pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, most programs are pretty good. Any coach that's been doing this for an amount of time, they're on the right track. We see coaches that, it's like you can probably refine that. I probably wouldn't do that, but most programs are okay, right? So yeah, we'll look at the person first and just get that feedback from the person and why they failed the thing that you designed for them.
Definitely. I want to give a little shout out on the program design side to one of our ambassadors, Renato, who's putting together some cool content for us that you guys will see later in the year on auto-regulation strategies.
Yeah.
And we're not going to dive deep into any of that today, but when we're talking about managing fatigue, recovery, and then bringing the client into the conversation and helping them be a part of the discussion around, how do things feel in the gym, the stuff he lays out in the education that's coming is really cool and super practical for you to, take on into your program designs.
Yep. Just be careful. And I know Renato didn't do this in his education, but be careful not to wrap too much around that for clients that aren't ready to track that stuff.
Yeah. Well,
right?
The thing I love is he's laid out it according to life cycle stage. So like novice, intermediate, advanced, and it's very different communication across those stages. So it's really good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. But yeah, I think most people are like, what was your RPE, right? It's like, they didn't teach them RPE. Nothing wrong with RPE. Like I use it with some clients that know what the hell I'm talking about, right? Like Dennis Cheatham, for instance. Like we always go back and forth on RPE and his design. And, another client, it's like, I would never talk about RPE with that person. It's just like, hey, feel it out. But the intentions are different, right? It's like we're trying to like dial this thing in with Dennis and this other client over here. It's like, oh no, we're just moving some weights. That's it, right? So, regulation and understanding how many reps are in reserve and all that stuff is really good. But it goes back to knowing your why, and it's like, a lot of general population people, they don't really need to dig into that stuff, but it is very beneficial for a percentage of people as well.
I made that mistake. I gave RPE to Jacob, my husband, and he was not into it at all.
Oh, I feel like he would overanalyze that.
Well, yeah. He just he's like, what does this mean? I don't understand. It was too much to wrap his head around. He's a smart guy. I feel like I should lead with that, but
yeah, he's a pretty smart dude.
He's okay. He's all right, but he was not into
almost
RPE.
Too smart. He's probably like, no, this doesn't make sense.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, that's recovery. That's all I have on recovery.
Yeah, I think so. Let's dig into the human a little bit. So
oh, this is our jam.
Yeah, let's get into what's actually happening in the body.
All right. What was that?
I don't know. I'm just feeling my body. My chair also is starting to break. So for those on video, if I just fall backwards, there's seriously something happening with my chair right now.
If that happens, we will not cut that out.
No, we definitely won't. But there's definitely a screw that's fallen out. So I'm bracing my core a little harder than normal to stay in my seat.
Good. There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, the human. So the first thing we have to look at is where are they on that life cycle, right? So what is their experience? The way that you train a beginner or novice is so much different than that of an advanced trainee. So different. And the biggest thing, and I know I'm repeating myself here, is simple is better. with beginners,
Yeah.
right? Simplicity and building a really good base. Simplicity and building a really good base. And because I've gotten asked this question before, and I have an answer to it, but when I say building a good base, like what comes to mind?
It makes me think of the things that I'm doing right now as being supportive of what I want to do in the future.
But what are those? Like, what are the characteristics of building a big base, in your opinion?
Yeah, quality movement.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so that I have something to be able to build on, later on.
Yeah.
So I'd say quality movement is one. Just like good behaviors around the gym as well, like knowing how to read tempo, knowing how things should actually feel when I do them, understanding how to take rest periods, because you sometimes have a novice client and they like just skip their rest,
Not
just
only
like,
novices.
Yeah.
Not only
But
novices.
you got to build those things on early, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like behaviors around how someone is training. And then on the recovery side, like what they're doing outside of the gym and helping them connect the dots between, I'm a little bit dehydrated this day, so I don't feel as good in the gym. Helping them to start to see those patterns so that when they get to an advanced stage, they just know that shit.
Yeah, the dangerous thing with beginners is they see results no matter what. So if you're not there to like point those things out, they might think it's okay, right? They're like, yeah, I'm fucking good. I drank Friday night, had a really good time. Was at the gym on Saturday, a little hungover, still perform well. I'm getting stronger. I'm all good, man. It'll be like this forever, right? So it's like they just get better and better and better no matter what they're doing, right? They're like in a huge caloric deficit. They're not eating enough food, or they're for some people, younger males especially, they're eating like 7,000 calories a day and they're getting leaner and all that. So yeah, sometimes that stuff needs to be pointed out. And inside that as well, when we start thinking about what we're doing in the gym for strength training, right? We're trying to get stronger. Exercise selection and what we're doing, right? Like multi-joint big movements are really important in building the base, right? So if someone's goal is to get stronger over a lifetime, you don't want to just compound a bunch of volume in leg extensions and leg curls, and that's it, right? So you want to get more specific over time, right? A lot of really good things come from squatting, right? Like a lot of people don't really need to do leg extensions if they're squatting, right? Like beginners. A lot of really good stuff comes from Romanian deadlifts. You don't need to do leg curls if you're doing a good amount of volume in RDLs if you're a beginner. So in terms of exercise selection, I think it's really important that we do bias those multi-joint compound big movements with beginners. And just like advanced program design strategies, don't do the advanced exercise selection pieces right now because you don't need to. You can still eke out another 100 pounds of strength in the back squat without doing any accessories, right? And I'm not saying don't do accessory movements with beginners, but I'm just saying don't bias those over the big compound movements.
Yeah, I mean, we think about our priorities at OPEX for a beginner client, and I think this applies to whether they are trying to build strength, whether they are doing that, to get as strong as possible or just to be healthy for life. We're trying to create efficiency and movement patterns. So they actually have to do those patterns to be able to get stronger at them.
So we call that motor control.
Yep.
And what happens with a beginner client when they're practicing motor control in the gym, right? What happens? They get bigger and they get stronger. Does that mean motor control gets you stronger? For some people, yeah. But, I'm not doing 5-1, 5-1 and getting stronger in anything right now, right? But a beginner will get stronger. So it goes back to that conversation of like the bigger muscle, does that lead to, bigger gains in strength? It's like, there's a correlation, but usually it's because the person doesn't have any experience in that thing. So motor control, someone can get really big, relative. They can get really big and they can get really strong. So you can test that 1 rep max back squat before someone has, gathered that, years of motor controls training, and you give them years of motor controls training and they're like, you are a genius. Something that you're doing is really working. I never thought doing light loads for, really high tempos would ever increase my 1 rep max back squat. But you in the back of your head, you have to know like, yeah, they would have fucking gotten stronger no matter what.
Yeah.
So.
Oof, those were the days.
I know, right? It's the old like 14, 15-year-old me. I was like,
Yeah.
you're getting so strong. And then like when I became a man, 17, 18, it was like, Getting strong.
Real strong.
Getting strong, relatively. Getting strong.
Let's talk about genetics.
I meant for that to be a joke. I hope that came off as a joke.
Gotcha.
Okay. Just for audio, just in
I
case
did
you guys.
make like a very fast transition from that, like trying to brush it under the table.
Weirdo.
Should we talk about genetics a little bit, because that does come into play with
Yes.
someone's ability to get strong?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll be a quick one, but it's important to note, right? Like, some people are actually hard gainers. Some people actually put on just slabs of muscle without doing anything genetically. So that actually matters, right? So if you're that person that goes into the gym and, you're 20, 25 years old and you've always struggled with putting on muscle and, you were always the skinny guy or the skinny girl in school, like, don't get discouraged when you're not able to put on slabs of muscle in your first year in the gym, right? You'll get stronger. You'll start to see some of the toning happen and stuff like that. But, you just have to compound years and years and years of that stuff, and it'll definitely come. And then from the other side, if you're that person that does go into the gym and just puts on slabs of muscle extremely easily, don't think that you're going to continue to do that when you're 60, right? You're just not. So genetics do play a huge role in our potential as beginners.
Expression of genes, though, does depend on what we do with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because you have the propensity to get strong because that's in your genetic code doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to happen just because you never pick something up.
Yeah, definitely. That shit's in our DNA. Yeah, and we can even test that stuff now, right? It's like, you have a predisposition to get really strong, and you can be really fast, but you're not going to be that enduring, right? It's like we do have that stuff in our DNA. We can actually test that stuff now. So I wouldn't advise like go and get your DNA tested at 30 years old and let that change your entire life, because that shit changes as well, right? It changes based on what we've done with it and our expressions of those genes over the years. But yeah, our DNA plays a huge role in what our potential is and what we'll be good at and not good at.
On the anthropometric side, that starts to play a big role in like how much load someone can actually lift.
What does that word mean?
Like the build of your body, the way your limbs
just like
are laid out.
just like the length of your limbs, right? Like that's what we're talking about. It's anything in the body, but we're speaking about limb length and how your body is put together. So just in case someone's like, anthropology?
Good catch there. I was like, I don't think I've ever actually defined that word, but I know what it means. The amount someone could bench press. If someone has really freaking long arms versus short arms, they're probably going to be able to bench press less load because they've got to move it further. Like
exactly.
That makes a difference.
Yeah.
Deadlifting versus squatting. You see some people that are way better at pulling from the ground than squatting because of the way they're built.
Yeah. You see people with the little short arms and the longer femurs, and it's like, they're probably not going to be as good at this versus that. So yeah, the way that our bodies are made up, it makes a huge difference in what we're good at. So with that being said, it's like, don't get discouraged if you have a training partner that has 15-inch arms, and I'm talking about length, not around, and they're bench pressing like 1.5 times what you're bench pressing. If you're someone that's like your freaking knuckles drag against the ground when you walk, it's gonna be difficult for you to push that amount of load through that large of range of motion. So yeah, limb length and the way that our bodies are made up makes a huge difference.
God, I feel that on the overhead press. I got
just
some
keeps going,
some
right?
long arms, and they it's a long way to push. The strict handstand push up as well was never my friend for that reason.
Yeah. I have weird legs when it comes to my body, because I have a really short torso. Not really short, but I have a short torso, and my legs are more my femur more than my tibia. Like my tib and fib are about normal, I would say, but my femur's long compared to my torso and my fibula. So, when I squat, it looks like I'm like never stopping. Like I go like, and I have to go really deep in the squat to feel like I can hold positions. Like I can't squat to like parallel and feel really good about it. Like I feel like just the way that my limbs are laid out, I'm too far back, right? So my center of gravity goes too far back unless I hit a full range of motion. That's because my femurs are really long. So I always get, it's always pointed out, like, why the fuck do you squat so deep? It's like, because I actually don't feel good if I don't. Like, I'm not strong enough.
I'm literally the opposite. I have long tib fib, short femur, short torso. And you've seen me squat. It's not super deep.
Yeah, we're going to do some stuff around your squat later, right?
Yeah,
In a couple
I think
months,
so. I think so. Yeah, we've got some content coming out around that.
Cool.
On the human side, anything else we haven't hit? Experience a little bit, but we have talked about life cycle and training age mattering kind of throughout the whole conversation.
Yeah. So I guess, I don't know, I think it's important for people to understand. We lay this out more specifically in the guide, but let's just say beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So that kind of encapsulates everything. But it's just like keep it really simple with the beginner. Once you go to intermediate, start messing around with some things, right? Don't mess around with everything. Start messing around with some things. And I think it was, who was it that said this? It was, sorry if I'm not giving you the credit. I think it was Dr. Israetel. I think it was him.
Okay.
He said something that was like, that's a really good analogy, but he said, you don't want to be the advanced person. Like, you don't want to be the person that has to use advanced techniques. You don't want to be the person that has to be, everything has to be dialed in and perfect to see results. And he compared it to medicine. He's like, you don't want to be the person that needs advanced medical techniques done to you. You don't want to be the person in the ICU, right? He's like, you want to be the person that's like going in for the checkup. They give you the thing, you're good, and you get better. And I don't think he was talking about training age, but he was just talking about advanced training techniques, and that really like hit home for me. I was like, that was a great way to explain it. The intermediate place is like where a lot of people just want to like be, right? Because when you get to advanced, everything's just harder, right? Your body feels like shit when you do something really hard. You have to do really hard shit to like get stronger. So that intermediate stage is where your clients should like experience the most and have the most amount of fun, because there's a lot of variation in there. We talk about it with like accumulation, intensification, this, that. So that intermediate stage is when you start to play around with things. And then once you get to that advanced stage, that's when, if the goal is to get stronger, you just have to be absolutely dialed in, right? So all the learnings from the beginner and intermediate stage, those are now coming into play when you get to that advanced stage. And if you don't have good behaviors around training and all of that built in, you're just going to plummet and you're going to atrophy, right? I know that's specific to muscle, but you're just going to atrophy as a human relative to strength when you get there.
Just all the intermediates forever. That sounds great.
You see it. You see it in a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, that's unfair. You see it in a number of competitive power lifters and competitive bodybuilders, right? They get to that most advanced stage and they plummet so hard. And I think a lot of that is because they didn't build those really good behaviors in, where when they had to turn that switch and it was like, I don't need to be the best in the world anymore, or like, that's not what I'm striving for. They weren't able to like, that's all they knew, right? They're just like, yeah, just do whatever the fuck I do to be the best, right? But they didn't have like the behaviors and the sustainability and the consistency around just like being okay, just doing it built in. So they just like plummeted and went down a mountain. So that's obviously not the only thing, but that comes to mind when thinking about what you said and building good behaviors. That was a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, what it takes to express at the highest level is different to what it takes in the step before. And you can have a really good time being in that step before, advanced or elite or whatever you want to call it, and then absolutely hate what comes next and not want to do that. Yeah. And that's where that drop-off comes. Yeah. People aren't willing to do what it takes, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. And God, me and so Faraz was obviously just in town, and we were talking with James this morning about like advanced training techniques, and because me and Faraz were talking about, we went to college together, and we trained together, and he was like, he brought up, and I forgot about this. Like I knew I was like, I overtrained when I was young and all that stuff, but he brought this up. He's like, remember, we used to train for like 3 hours, and you and Fraser. So Fraser was another receiver on our team. The guy's an absolute just beauty of a dude. But he's like, you and Fraser would just want to go 4 and 5 hours. You guys were fucking weird. Like, he said that. And I was like, I do remember that. And then we started talking about what we were doing in those sessions and talk about like advanced training techniques when you shouldn't be doing advanced training. We're doing everything wrong, right? It was like, we'd go through like, an hour of on-field drills and skills, and then we'd go into the gym and then we'd train, and then we'd do like an hour of plyos, and it was like 3 or 4 hours, and it was just like back to back to back, and we did that like 5-6 days a week for like 2 years, and I told him, I'm like, man, do you know how much better I would have been if I didn't do that? Do you know how much better my body would feel if I never experienced that? And we just had a conversation around that. So just using those advanced techniques when A, you don't need them, and B, you're not ready for them. Like you can't actually express those things. It's just really interesting. So in that training age example, it's important to be where you are and train like you should based on where you are, and not always like look out years ahead and be like, I need to be doing that stuff right now, because we did that stuff and we survived it, but hell, I may not be here if we didn't do that stuff.
Well, I guess to wrap up, unless there's anything else you want to add on the human.
Mm-mm.
So we hit our 4 principles for building strength: know your why, adaptation, recovery, and then the human and the things that are inside of us. Want to share a few little examples, like how those things apply to you and what you do for strength?
Yeah. I think I laid it out earlier, but yeah, I don't do a bunch for strength.
Yeah,
I don't do a bunch for strength. In my day-to-day, I'm an exposure guy, right? I just like to be exposed to a lot of different things, and I like to play around with a lot of different things as well. Sometimes that goes well, and sometimes it doesn't go well. Like, right now I'm playing around with full body resistance every single day, and it's been fun. I'm like 2 weeks in, 1 weekend.
7 days a week?
No, sorry.
Okay.
Every day I'm training
Cool.
in the gym, so 5 days a week.
Got it.
And then I do like some mixed map stuff because I really enjoy it on the 6th day.
Someone heard that and was like, I'm going to do 7 days of FBR. So I just wanted to clarify.
Sorry. Good. Thank you. So I'm doing 5 days of FBR, and I'm actually, God, it's pretty fun right now. And I'm just challenging what I can really recover from. So I'm just tracking like how many sets I'm doing per week of, every pattern and every body part. And, the goal over the next 4 weeks is to increase that and see if I can make it for the entire 4 weeks and how I feel after it. So far, I feel great, and not getting stronger, but exposure's there. So yeah, I'm experimenting with that now. If you ask me what would I do for myself right now if I wanted to get stronger, total opposite. Yeah, total opposite. For me, to get stronger, I would have to go upper lower split, because I'm just absolutely wiped hitting high percentages of anything. So if I'm benching high percentage, like I can't do anything effectively after that. If it means like my CNS has to get like re-geared up to do something. So I would have to stick with upper body. Like I couldn't go, close grip bench press and then do like tough squats or tough deadlifts. Like it wouldn't fly for me. So I would have to go upper lower. And on those upper and lower days, on the days that I'm doing like very intentional, like I want to get stronger training, I would have to do a decent amount of sets because I need a decent amount of volume, but I need to take that volume into account for the days that are coming after that. So for me, I could only do maybe 2 days of intensity inside of an intensification phase. So if I laid out an intensification phase for myself, it would be like a Monday and a Thursday or Friday where I'm doing like intensity. So those would look like intensification days. And then the rest of my training days wouldn't actually look like intensification. They would look like exposure and just like moving through some patterns to get ready to move or to move heavy loads on those 2 days. So I'm not the person that can lift really, really heavy every day because I get pretty wiped out when I do anything at high percentages, upper and lower body.
Yeah. Thanks for the insight.
Yeah, for sure. What about you?
So I guess strength for me, I'm not trying to push the envelope in terms of how much I can pick up with a barbell or put over my head or anything like that. Like I'm not trying to increase absolute strength numbers, but it is a goal for me to be competitive in BJJ at the level I'm at. And I want my strength to be supportive of that. So when I come into the gym and I do strength or resistance training, whatever we want to call it, I'm thinking about like, what are the characteristics that are going to make me better on the mat? And it's not having a heavier 1RM deadlift based on where I am and how close I am to potential there. It's not, being able to, I'm trying to think of a good example. There's no really good KPIs in BJJ. It's like one of the challenges, right? There's no good research on like the strength numbers that someone needs to have to be better on the mat. Yeah. Number one, because there's not great research on
25 meters shrimping.
For time. Or under load.
For time.
How much can you weighted shrimp?
For time with someone judging you for quality as well. Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
It's a fairly new sport. There's not much research in it. And at the end of the day, I don't think that, like, there's a level of strength that's important, but it's not the be-all, end-all. Like, there's
I'll argue that even if there was a ton of research in it, there would still be no KPIs that are like this, and this. There's sports that have been around for a very long time, and there are no, like, direct correlating KPIs that say you'll be really good at this sport. Baseball, football, basketball, right? Like that we try, but that test has failed over and over and over again. And judging like collegiate athletes going into the pros of like, this is a combine, this is what we're testing. And you have all these like genetic freaks that just suck at the sport. And you have like Tom Brady that is not a genetic freak. Bad. And he's like the best that ever did it. Right. So, I would argue that I don't think there'll ever be KPIs that are like this equals good on the mat.
Especially once you think about levels like blue, purple, brown, black, like what does someone need at different levels? There's some data on like black belts at a world's level can do 9 pull-ups and stuff like that, which is not very impressive. That kind of speaks to...
It's like, cool. Yeah, obviously.
That kind of speaks to the point that strength is not necessarily the one thing that will make or break a BJJ athlete. But keeping that in mind, I mean, strong grip is important. Explosive hip extension is fairly important. Single leg work, there's some postural endurance and core stuff that is all important, and that definitely having a base of built in the gym is helpful on the mat. So all of that stuff features in my program design to varying degrees throughout the year. In terms of adaptation, it's a weight class sport. So excessive hypertrophy is like not a good thing if it can be avoided. You don't want someone to put on 10 pounds of lean mass just for the sake of it, unless it's actually going to make him way better and like really competitive in a higher weight class. So look, I want to look good. I do care about that stuff, but like getting jacked is not a goal.
Getting pretty jacked. Right
I'm getting leaner right now.
About this one. Yeah, but it looks the same.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely getting leaner, but I'm not trying to put on any more muscle, which is helpful because I'm not trying to go up a weight class right now. On the recovery side, it can't interfere with skill training. Like the thing that's most important for me with 10 years of lifting experience and 4 years of jiu-jitsu experience is the jiu-jitsu training. Like getting better at the skills inside of the sport are more important than getting a stronger back squat. So I have to keep that in mind. And then also on the recovery side, in BJJ, just to practice the sport, like there's a fair amount of resistance. Like you're under load when you're in the gym, picking people up, throwing them, pushing them off of you. I'm doing 100 bench presses and glute, bridges every single day that I'm in training. So that all has to factor into recovery as well. Yeah. So I'm not doing a ton of resistance training. It's 2 to 3 days in and out in 45 minutes type of lifting right now. Yep. What else? The human, I mentioned like around 10, 12 years of lifting experience for me. So that factors into what I'm doing. And other than that, like muscle mass.
What would you do for yourself to get stronger, knowing everything you know about yourself and everything that you just laid out? So let's say January comes and you're like, okay, I'm going to take a break from, competing in BJJ. I'm just going to do it for fun. What would your design look like if you're like, I want to get stronger?
Yeah, I would, based on like training age, do an upper lower split and dig like a little bit deeper into upper one day and lower one day versus full body resistance where you're just kind of touching on upper lower patterns in the session. Like I do need volume and I'm someone that responds quite well to a good amount of volume. I need that to get stronger. Yep. So that would be one piece there. What else would I say to that? I don't know. I think that like
I think that was good.
Yeah, I think those are like the main.
You would shift from FBR, what you're doing now, to upper lower, and just be more intentional on pushing the envelope in intensity, obviously, right?
Exactly.
Because to get stronger, what do you got to do? You got to lift more weight.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no pill.
No.
There's no pill for it. Well, I guess there is. But naturally.
We're not doing that. No. And again, the reality is there's no time for that right now. So I'm not going to get stronger doing FBR 2 to 3 times a week. It's not enough strength training volume for me to actually get stronger. So we'll see come January. Maybe go back to upper lower and push some big weights.
Let's do it. Let's push some big weights. Well, I'll watch you do it.
Yeah.
Probably not going to push any big weights.
No. The only thing that'll grow is my upper body, though. My legs aren't getting any stronger.
I think you get your legs. Oh, stronger or growing?
Stronger.
Oh, you said
they might grow, but I don't think they're going to get stronger. We'll see.
We should do an experiment in January. We should do. No, we should. It'd be fun.
I feel like
I know we're using your body. I think we're using your body for it. So yeah, it'd be fun. But it'd be fun to see what you could do to increase your squat.
Yeah.
Or whatever that like lower body KPI is for strength
like
for you.
I burned out my nervous system so much in my final years of CrossFit, and my body's like, "You're never going there again."
Yeah. It's just a different there.
True.
We'll talk about it later.
True.
Well, Operation Get Georgia Stronger.
I feel like we should probably wrap up
let's do
our
that.
strength episode there. As a reminder, guys, Strength Coach's Manual. Click the link in the description to download that guide. And CCP, go on, register, or go ahead and learn more, book a call. That was like 3 different directions that I just
hit
gave.
that button. Apply today.
Apply to CCP.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you in either the last cohort for 2021, or we'll give you some info on pre-sale for 2022.
Awesome.
All
Thanks,
right,
Georgia.
guys. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.